The Celtics are going to beat the 76ers 95-86, and there will be a Game 7 on Sunday. So the Celtics are still alive, and what a low-scoring game, by the way.
Yeah, not great for those of us that took the over for the Celtics, didn't get there. So how are we going to package our analysis of this game and Jayson Tatum? Because so often in this business we say, like, that's what great teams do. They find a way in the end to get the job. Is that what great players do? They find a way to get the job done in the end?
No, we're going to say Tatum was terrible. Tatum was terrible, and it was almost as if he was due in the fourth quarter. And I'm not going to – you can't ignore the fourth quarter.
He outscored the Sixers in the fourth.
Correct. So you can't ignore that part.
So you can't call him terrible then. I hate to jump in like this quick. You can't call him terrible because he's the reason why you were down like this, but he also just won you the game.
It's not how you start. It's how you finish.
He was Cedric tonight.
No, he absolutely
the closer.
the closer. He gets Andy.
The TNT drama.
Andy, he gets coffee tonight. Why?
Because
coffee is for closers.
Right. So Tatum can get some. Of course, whatever you call the first three quarters, there's no coffee for you. You are not getting any coffee.
No soup, no ice cream, no coffee.
But
nothing.
this to me is got to be so demoralizing for the 76ers. Closeout game, best player on the other team. You hold him down to nothing. He's terrible for three quarters, and you lose. You can't beat him because anytime a star player is held down for so long, you know it's kind of only a matter of time. And I don't just mean Tatum. I mean Embiid's the same way. I don't know about Harden now, but a guy like Jimmy Butler or whoever, if you keep kind of letting them, have success despite their best player going off, there you open the door up for that. Also, of note, the most important stat, it's not turnovers because they went over that quote-unquote magic number. They had 17 turnovers. That should mean a loss. Three-point shooting. It all comes down to three-point shooting with the Celtics.
Correct.
They went 15 to 35. You know what that is? Just under 43%. Which is the magic number, 40%, so that's a winner.
But also not just them and their record and their percentage, but you scroll down, keep it in the same column with your cursor, 23.5%.
You're not going to win.
Right? You're not going to win in the NBA when you shoot 23% from three-point land. And this was a simple game. Now, interesting, remember you were talking earlier about the bench? They did not expand the bench.
No, they went seven guys, which I like. Which I like a lot. And they went double bigs to start, which I've been asking for. Like, they needed to make some sort of change. And this is the lineup. This was the lineup
that scored 0 points with Al Horford yet again.
Horford had 2 points in the game. Al Horford had 2 points.
He had two.
Horford is averaging 1 point a game the last 2 games.
He had 11 boards. He had a nice block, and he also
nice block.
I needed it in the parlay, although the parlay got squashed anyway.
Yeah. All of my online accounts are just gassed right now.
They're empty. You owe them money.
I do. I don't know if that's possible.
See, I'm going to spin this positive because
they won when they turned the ball over 18 times.
And Tatum and Brown didn't play well.
Overall, it's a positive. They just won an elimination game on the road.
Now it's a one-game season. Get out all your cliches. Yeah. Boston Garden. Try to contribute
and
on some level.
If you're Philly,
House of Horrors.
Yes.
Recently.
If you're Philly, you got to be freaking out.
Well, that's the
honestly
thing.
Because first of all, it's Doc Rivers and his long history. It's James Harden and his long history. You just gave the Celtics life. You're going back to Boston. And what Hart was just saying, Tatum and Brown weren't that good. What are the chances that Tatum and Brown are bad in Game 7? Both of them are bad in Game 7.
Well, in the first half for Jayson Tatum, very likely. Because it's 3 games in a row, so why wouldn't it be 4?
The game time is to be determined because they'll depend on if there are other games that day.
What do we think is
the
prime time?
You got to tell Tatum that the game starts 2 hours earlier or something.
Tell them there's like a time zone
Last year,
change.
the Milwaukee game, you and I actually jumped on for an impromptu post-game show on WEEI. So I think last year's Game 7 of Milwaukee and the Celtics was like 3 o'clock starting time.
So I know tomorrow you have...
Pretty sure.
Line. Tomorrow you have 2 Game 6s on a Friday with New York, Miami, and Golden State, LA. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if either of them play Game 7, would they jump them to Sunday? Or they get? I think so.
Full Mother's Day, and moms will be thrilled.
Oh, my God.
I liked it better when you were going to do gardening and we were going to go to brunch.
Oh, we can do brunch.
Yeah,
brunch is perfect.
Yeah, brunch should
work. As long as we're back by tip.
But, yeah, I mean, you'll take the win. And I'll tell you, the bench was good. And having Brogdon and White both come off the bench, a little bit of a different dynamic. Both of those guys hit some really big shots. They had been missing that from Derek White in the series. Derek White, who had a great season. He was way better than I thought he could be during the regular season. Second team all defense as well, but he was a good offensive player. And then in this series, it really hasn't been much. And he comes off the bench and was knocking down some threes. And so
Still minus for the game.
yeah, he was
The only Celtic, right? Yeah, the
Oh,
only
was it?
Celtic
Yeah.
minus.
Yeah, that's an odd little number there. But getting that kind of offense off the bench, I think is pretty good. And don't you have to roll Time Lord back out there in the starting lineup on Sunday.
You
have
don't
to.
change what
You
just worked
can't.
for you, because if you roll back out what worked for you ultimately in the end, because Tatum caught fire at the right time and hit not one, not two, not three, but 4 straight threes in the fourth quarter. Just let's say Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum play like an average midseason game. You win.
Yeah. Yep.
You win.
I
And
agree.
one
The
of them
defense was so much better tonight than we have seen. That looked like a 2022 Celtics performance right there.
Oh, yeah, 95-86 is low scoring.
Oh, and look at the shooting percentage overall for
Yeah.
Philly. They couldn't buy a bucket, but a lot of that's defense. And again,
Yep.
we have one eye on it because we're doing the show, but a lot of our contested shots, and that's what you're going to get, especially, and I know it's a three-point shooting league, but when you have Time Lord in there, anything that you think you might get in the paint or close to the bucket, not going to happen. Also, Horford's a good perimeter defender for a guy that size.
Sure
So
is. And he's an emotional guy too. Like when things get going the right way, like he starts nodding and clapping, and they were feeding off of that as well. They needed every little something to buoy them because they were kind of sunk, or at least
third quarter,
stunned.
they looked kind of
They looked stunned.
So
they were.
I give them credit
they
for
were on the ropes. They were
Oh, yeah.
absolutely on the ropes, standing 8 count, whatever boxing cliche you want
Give
to
him credit
use.
for snapping out of that because it did not look good in real time.
And I do wonder, and as you said, we're kind of watching with one eye how that transpired. Sort of, you referenced last game with 5 guys arguing each other. Like,
Yeah.
what took place in the huddles? What took place on the court? Like, who was saying what? Because we talk about emotional disconnect and leadership with this team, but yeah, we were just playing the Dub L game. Like, I'm back in Dubland. Like, they
They're
should
winning
have
the
lost.
series.
They should have lost tonight, and the fact that they didn't has given me some strength that Game 7, I'm feeling good.
Would you call that Dublin?
Wow. Holy smokes.
What
You got to take a second lap, you think? You got to get up and take a second lap?
Good news is he's downing a C4, so
That's
he's
true.
got
Yeah.
energy.
That was a quick lap. Guys, the guy's flying right now. No, I mean,
And
it was
the
ugly.
other
It was
thing,
ugly for a while.
We
Real
bragged
ugly.
about all the 30-30 games all year when Tatum and Brown would both go for 30.
Oh, yeah. How about
At
this?
least one of them is due for a big, great game. Like, just come out, 14 points first quarter, well on your way to 35-plus points.
You know what would be a good flip side stat? Maybe the Rich Keefe Stats and Info Department can get on it. They win it.
They went home.
That's me.
Okay.
No, so the 30-30 games, their records is off the charts.
Yeah.
Neither guy scored 20 tonight. What is the record when neither guy scores 20?
Not good.
I
Oh.
can't imagine.
I don't even know if StatMuse would have that for us. But can we just say that
Say
when
whatever
he
you
has a
want.
season that is not even, that doesn't even compare to the one he had last year when he was Defensive Player of the Year, for Marcus Smart to turn on the Jets and carry the team,
He was great.
7-7 and 22 with 7 and 7. Damn.
Yep.
And
That's
also,
a great game.
it was his best defensive game too. Every
Yes,
time
it
you looked
was.
up, he was making a play. He was ripping the ball away from Embiid. He was playing out of his mind. And so that they needed that. Like if they didn't have the the intensity or whatever that Smart always brings to the table, or actually I shouldn't say always, that he often brings to the table, who knows what they would have done. Maybe they would have just completely packed it in when the Sixers made their run in the third quarter.
And I always consider him sort of a void filler as the third star, the third member of this modern trio here. And sometimes that's a bad thing because I feel like when there's a vacuum of leadership, maybe he does too much, or when this was a game
yeah.
where you needed him to step up.
He
and
led the
fill
team
a
in
void.
scoring.
Yeah, and tied for the best plus minus. Like he second in minutes. Like
42 minutes.
You
yeah.
needed him. You needed him in this game. And I'm going to be interested, though, as we talked about, to hear the post-game comments and sort of
Yeah.
the way they take this, the way this
I know.
springboards them. Are we going to get Jaylen?
Tatum and Brown are going to say
who
two
says
completely
what?
different
like that.
things again.
And will Missoula say something tonight and something different tomorrow, as
Could be.
he's been doing lately?
But I'll tell you, I think they at least, in a way, found the formula. I like the starting lineup the way that it is. I like the really short bench, the 7-man rotation. And you got to figure if Tatum and Brown just hit a few more shots, maybe the game's not even as close. Now, on the flip side, Joel Embiid, he went 9 of 19. He had 26 points, 10 rebounds. So certainly not, 26 and 10. But for Joel Embiid, they held him in check.
They
And
defended him.
James Harden, 4 of 16 from the field.
There it
13
was,
points.
Rich. You called it.
Uh-huh.
You absolutely
All
called
right.
it.
And
So-
Ofer from 3.
So, 0 for 6. So you can join us on the Celtics. We're here till 11, 617-779-7937. It is Keefe, Fitzy, and Hart. Celtics with a 95-86 win over the Sixers, forcing a Game 7 on Sunday.